Welcome to the Monopoly Mindset, the podcast where we uncover the strategies to build your real estate portfolio one property at a time.
We're your hosts, Tyler and Tommy, here to share our story of playing real-life Monopoly.
Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, this is your go-to resource for mastering the real estate game.
So grab your board, roll the dice, and let's buy Boardwalk together.
Welcome to Monopoly Mindset, episode 21. We have a phenomenal episode this week. We have a guest on, Anthony Scornaienchi. He's an investor, a real estate agent, a teacher, a new parent, and all-around great guy. Welcome to the show, Anthony.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we met Anthony probably 6 months ago in the Wealth Juice Inner Circle that we talk about a lot. And as far as people that have been in the group this whole time, you've definitely seemed like a rock star, and you attend all the stuff. You're always working, so it's been a pleasure to get to know you and kind of get to know your story a little bit. But I'm excited to hear more about it today.
Yeah, man. Likewise. I mean, it's been nothing but a positive. The inner circle and meeting you guys and just hearing all the success stories. Like, it's finally at the point where it's like, all right, we have our tribe now.
For sure. And as a real estate agent, I'm sure you're around real estate or investors a lot more. And for us, like Ty and I, it was kind of just felt like it was us. We didn't have many other people to talk to about real estate. And so now having 10, 15, or I guess 50 people now that we can talk to about real estate at any given time, it's been very exciting for us just to keep talking more and more about real estate and realize that we're not like the weirdos that are always talking about it. There's other people interested in this stuff as well.
Well, that's a thing. Like, before I joined and before I met you guys, that's pretty much how I felt all the time. Even though I'm in the profession, the second you get outside of the world of real estate or investing and everything, nobody knows what you're talking about. And nobody carries a conversation the way that you would, how we do in the inner circle, or, things that we're talking about. Or rarely do you come across another person who's, sort of in the same spot you are in their investing journey. So it's such a I forget who I was saying. I was talking to Ray, from the inner circle. And I was like, the fact that, you're getting your first property and you have this foundation of people to lean on is unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. And also I've noticed people in podcasts call a lot of people their friends that they might not have ever met before. And it's but you do also then naturally start to talk about other stuff. Like I talk to Mike Busko all the time, and it started out just real estate. And then, it evolves to smoking meats was, but can you take us back to, talk about your day job and how you kind of got into real estate? Has that always been on your radar, or was that picked up later?
So I started off being a public school teacher in inner city Philadelphia. And I always give people sort of the glimpse of I graduate college, I have all this student debt, and I'm oh, I'm going to be a teacher, I'm going to change the world, kind of having the purest intentions ever. And then getting my first paycheck of getting my teacher contract and my first paycheck, and my first contract was $31,000 a year. And my first paycheck didn't even break $1,000, really wasn't even close to it. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So at that point, I had to get a second job, and I didn't know any other teacher who wasn't working a second job after school and then doing a summer job as well. And I finally got to the point where I was working at Joe's Steaks down at Frankfurt and Girard in Philly. It's one of the more known cheesesteak places. It was 2 a.m. I'm slinging cheesesteaks, the line's out the door, and I see a group of my friends who were I graduated high school with, and they're just coming from one of the best nights of their life at the, out with each other, at the bar, having a great time. And they're oh, what are you doing here? And I was yeah, what the hell am I doing here? And at that point I was man, I gotta find a different way. Simultaneously, I was dating someone who I moved in with, and that sort of fell apart. And I had bought my first house, and I had kind of bought it the wrong way, assuming that she would always be there to help me split the mortgage and the bills. And when she left, I was like, I'm gonna be like underwater. Like this, they're gonna start, banks gonna start coming after me. Like, what am I gonna do? So out of desperation, and this was like probably for like 2 years. Um, Facebook actually came out with a room by the rent app called like not app, it was like an extension off of Facebook, and it was called Roomster. And it had an algorithm that based your like how you acted with your friends and like basically like introduced you to new people that were looking for places to stay in your area. So I posted on there, and I ended up getting my first roommate in my bedroom or in my second bedroom at my house, and it was like $700 a month. And I was like, oh my God, like what is like I couldn't believe that like and I was in like this tiny 2 bed, 1 bath Fishtown house, like barely 900 square feet. And this person was like, absolutely, I'll pay $700 a month to be like to have a bedroom in your house. And it was wild because like he was splitting time between Philly and DC, and he was like only in Philly like on the weekend. So basically Monday through Friday I still had my house to myself. Fast forward after that, he stayed with me for like a year, and then he decided he was going to leave, and I started interviewing people again off of that app, and I ended up getting a foreigner on a working visa, and she was from France, and apparently like the rents over there are insane. And she's like, oh, she like did the tour of the house, and she's like, so how much? And I'm like, $900. And she's like, oh my gosh, that's so cheap. Yes, absolutely. And I was like, I was just blown away that somebody was going to pay me $900 a month to rent a bedroom in my house. So and like when you go from feeling like you're going to be underwater in your mortgage to now cash flowing like well over, and like, at the time my mortgage was 1,300. So I was out of my pocket, like I was only paying a couple $100, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, what is this real estate thing? I need to know more.
Yeah. It's so funny that some people just like you and Tommy both almost just fell into it on accident. I I was the opposite where like Tommy introduced me to real estate way before I had the money to buy anything. So I had like years of calculation, and like all my purchases have been like very calculated. Like I knew about real estate already, but like a lot of people, like both of you, like Tommy was kind of the same thing. Like he bought his house. Oh, my roommates will pay for it. And then like, oh wow, this real estate thing like is really cool. But yeah, and then that $900 is like the same as your teaching job paycheck. So you just like raised your income 50%.
Yeah, it was wild. And, when you're making $31,000 a year, and after taxes and everything, your paychecks are, you're just hitting $700 like a paycheck. You're like, to have $900 of extra income coming in, and all you have to do is give up a room in your house after you think you're going to lose everything. Like that is like, I literally was like getting on my hands and knees and just like thanking God that like this happened and like this was a possibility. So, I've always been sort of that ready, fire, aim type. Like I have that personality. So I'm always the person that's like, oh, I'll jump in and I'll just figure it out. But once that light bulb went off, like it was like, how do you go back after you've made that kind of money? So, since then, it's
Do you
just
tell
been,
this story? Do you tell this story to everybody when you're trying to get them to purchase a house as an agent? Because to me, that's like the best story. It's so good. You had a significant other that you were living with. Things fell through, and you had to figure it out after that. You end up finding roommates after, and like it just shows that if you buy the house, that you can figure it out. After the fact.
yeah. And I like so I don't even say like, I kind of use it in the context that like, especially for first time home buyers who have like the buyer's remorse and the jitters, I'm always like, you guys, real estate is one of the most forgiving assets that you can purchase. And you can implement so many fail safes if something does, like you can have a plan A, plan B, all the way to F, and like you're still going to be okay at the end of the day. So when I educate them about like what you can do with this, like especially for first time home buyers, I'll always give like what current rents are and what I think it could rent for currently. Cause I'm like, hey, if all else goes, sideways, you can rent this thing for, 2,300 a month, your mortgage 2,700. Can you guys afford 500 a month until you sell it? And they're always like, oh yeah, we can do that. Like that is a possibility. And I'm like, you're good. You're fine. There's plenty of things we can do if this goes sideways.
And today, it's so much easier to get people to rent by room because of how expensive rent is in general. Like at the time that you were doing it, it was a little bit more difficult, right? Like you're using a random app part of Facebook that doesn't even exist anymore to get people to rent your room, you know, versus today, you can reach out to almost any group of people and they're going to want to rent a room because they're going to save a significant amount of money doing it that way.
Right. And being in Philadelphia, we're the fifth largest city in the United States. So I've always like renting in an urban area in like, a B plus, A minus neighborhood. Like there's never been a shortage of opportunity of renters and styles that and ways that you can rent.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were an investor first, maybe by accident, but then did you then want to get your license for like yourself personally? Because like me and Tommy, for years now, we've been talking about, did we get our license not necessarily to sell people's houses, but more to just have access to the MLS, to be able to go look at places, to save money, and when we buy our own properties. What was your goal there?
So for me, honestly, like once COVID hit, I hadn't even thought about getting my license until after I purchased my short-term rental in the Poconos. So kind of fast forward, I purchased that property in Fishtown, the one that I was talking about, my first property in 2014. And then COVID hit, and I had so much equity in the property, and I had bought right before, like if you guys are any the audience is familiar with Philadelphia, like in the mid like between 2011 and 2014, like Fishtown was a neighborhood that pre 2011, you would like it was horrible, and you could easily buy single family homes, row homes, but you could buy them for like $65,000. And out of nowhere, the neighborhood exploded with the nightlife and restaurant scene. Obviously gentrification started happening and everything, and like within 5 to 7 years, it just like values of homes skyrocketed. So I sort of leveraged that, and right when COVID hit, I ended up cash out refinancing. And at the time, in 2014, I had a mortgage that was like, I think it was like 5.9%. And then when I cashed out refinance, I ended up with an interest rate of 3.3%, cashed out almost $100,000. And my monthly payment of that home, of the Fishtown home, only went up $100.
That's
So
amazing.
it was like unbelievable for me to do this. And then I went and got my Pocono place. And when I got up there, I really dove deep into the short-term rental side of real estate investing. And I did that for a couple years and really just focused on that one property. Well, the time that I was doing that, I was helping other people get their Pocono places up in the Poconos. And I had done so much research. People had saw that I had a successful Airbnb, and they started asking me questions. People are like, dude, you got to get your real estate license. Like, why are you not advising people and helping people, as a real estate agent? And after like the fourth person said that to me, I was like, okay, like I think it's time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that every investor needs to get it, but I do think that that's the next, a future step in Tommy and I's career, at least, because just, I don't know that we'll market it like you do. And like, sure, if a friend or a family wants to buy or sell a house through us, like, of course we'll do it. But yeah, I don't know. We talk about it all the time, and I think it could really help us just grow, again, our own portfolios, get that 3% back when we buy or whatever. But yeah, that's awesome.
There's also so much that like as an investor, but I'm sure going through the courses and actually getting your license and studying that you learn a little bit more, and then just behind the scenes you learn a lot more too of how like an actual brokerage works and like things that we just don't necessarily see. Like you're buying and selling, but I don't know like how a brokerage works like behind the scenes.
Exactly. And like the value of having my real estate license as an investor and the ability to help others is the fact that exactly how you said it. Like I studied the law and everything while I was going through real estate school. And like, so I know the laws so much better. I'm so much more well versed and familiar in them. But like the big part of it is like I have become a master of real estate contracts. And when a normal retail, first time home buyer is looking at the contract, they might as well be looking at hieroglyphics. And now at this point, like I can run through a real estate contract and I can be like, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. What's up with this? Why do they have it worded this way? So there's just like, I can see and literally like, figuratively and non-figuratively, like read between the lines and understand a contract so much faster and easier. So it's just become such a leverage point that like is invaluable when you're also an investor as well.
Yeah, that's so true. Like Tommy said, I have bought a few properties, but I, for the most part, glance over the thing and then DocuSign, sign, and trust that my realtor kind of put it together correctly. So yeah, we'll see if we ever get there. But I mean, it seems to be really working out for you. Would you say that you're kind of more focused on that side of it, the agent side of it, or are you still really focused on the investor side of it?
There's definitely like seasons of life and seasons of investing. So fast forward to 2 years ago, my wife and I settled on a weird duplex situation. So it was two single family homes in the city of Philadelphia, about 7 blocks away from my Fishtown house, that were deeded on one lot. So it's a lot that goes street to street, and there's two single family homes and their backyards are basically adjoining. And when we bought it at the time, it was just considered a courtyard. There wasn't even a fence up to split the properties. So we ended up purchasing that, and my wife is from Hershey, PA, and I'm, born and raised Philly in the suburbs around Philly. So eventually, we did have the discussion that we wanted to eventually, like, get that suburban house, like have a driveway, better school districts than what the school district of Philadelphia can provide and everything. But I was like, look, we don't have kids right now. Like we're going to get married in a year. Like, let's just do this, and let's, and to give like numbers and perspective, like we bought the duplex and our tenants in the back carriage house, they cover 51% of our mortgage. So I once I showed her the math and I was like, look, we can supercharge our savings, we can supercharge our lives, all while somebody is covering 51% of the mortgage and paying down this loan for us. Like, this is a win-win. And I was like, can you give me 5 years here? And then, we'll start looking out of the city of Philadelphia. And she was like,
congratulations.
Thanks,
That's amazing.
Thanks.
It's very difficult to get the spouse on board. So
yeah. So
Yeah.
like, and
with a
that's one of
duplex.
the like honestly, man, like, and you guys have to know this. You've had to have multiple conversations with your spouses. Like, if you're gonna go down the route of like real estate investing, and you're in a relationship, your partner has to be 100% fully committed, or they have to just believe in you 100% that you're going to figure it out, because it's not easy. It's challenging. A lot of the times, like, I don't want to say it sucks, but like all you're doing is just problem solving all the time and trying to figure stuff out. So if your spouse isn't on board and doesn't see the value and the reason behind your why, it's just going to make your life so much harder.
Yeah. I can speak for Tommy on this one and myself. I think we're both at a point where our spouses are 100% on board if we're not living there. So like, if I'm like, hey, we're gonna go buy this property in the Poconos, or me and Tommy are gonna buy this property together with like 99% of our money, then like she fully trusts me. Like, you're gonna make it work. Go ahead. Getting her to move to like a quadplex in Baltimore is probably not as much, but yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's definitely important.
Yeah, I have a dream of trying to build a duplex or a multifamily that my wife would like to live in, where like it's kind of like maybe a detached house where we live in, and then like there's a duplex on the other side. So overall, it's like a triplex, kind of similar to what you got going on. It sounds like you have a detached duplex, which I think those are some of the easiest ones to convince a spouse. Sometimes when they're touching, it's a little bit more difficult, but kudos to you for also practicing what you preach. I mean, I see you talking all the time about house hacking, and then to actually do it yourself, and you can show the power of that, and then you have all that real life experience to then go show to everybody that you're trying to get on board.
Well, that's the thing is like, and I actually just posted about this not too long ago, but I was in an open house, and I had a buyer's agent walk in with their clients. It was my listing. I was hosting the open house, and she looked at me and she was like, "Are you the listing agent?" And I said, "Yes." Why? And she was like, "Well, I wasn't sure, judging by how how underdressed you are." And I was explaining to her that I was like, "Listen, my clients don't hire me because of the fact that I'm in an Adidas polo and shorts. Like, mind you, it was 94 degrees." And like it's the middle of summertime. Like, of course, I'm not going to be in a three-piece suit, you know? But long story short, like the fact that when I explain to my clients, every new client that I meet, I explain to them, hey, I've been an investor for over 10 years. I have a portfolio of 4 properties. I'm actually in a house hack currently. I have a home in the Poconos, that's a short-term rental. And I have a long-term rental home in Fishtown. Like the value that that adds and the experience that I can provide. And after that real estate agent said that to me, I started digging up statistics, and it was the statistics came up 72% of real estate agents don't own investment properties. 42% of them are currently renting a home and have never owned a primary residence. And then when you zoom out and you do the American population, 6.7% of Americans have an investment property. And of that 6.7%, 88% of them only have one investment property. That's it. Just one investment property, one door. That's it. So when you can provide the value of experience of 10 plus years experience and then sort of give the data and be like, look, the fact that I'm a real estate agent. I own multiple properties in different asset classes. So it's not like I just know only about long-term rentals or I just know only about short-term rentals. It's sort of like it's how I provide value and why it's what separates me from, the average investor and the average real estate agent.
Yeah, we talk a lot about investor friendly agents because like I totally get why why an agent would not want to work with an investor. We want to get stuff way under market value. It probably takes us 10 times the amount of offers to get something accepted because we're offering so low. And like I sometimes feel bad for my agent because I realize how much more difficult it can be. That being said, I've bought 3 properties from him in the last 3 years versus I'm going to buy one. And of course, I hope to grow exponentially. So, hopefully that's like 3 in the next 2 years and then 3 in 1 year, right? So I get both sides of it. Whereas, homeowner, what I don't know what you probably know the statistic of like average turnover, but like say every 5 to 6 years.
That's it. 5 to 7 years. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it's both. It's there's pros and cons to both, right? So everything you said was absolutely right. But if you're I get more excited and I get more energy after I've done a showing with an investor because it's finally like we're talking the same language, we're looking at the
yeah,
same things. Like I'm happy to hop on a Google Meet call and analyze numbers with you. And the big thing that there's also a difference between an investor friendly agent and an investor agent. There's a
yeah,
lot of agents out here saying, well, I'm an investor friendly agent. Let me take you out and just open doors for you that have never done a pro forma in their life, don't know how to analyze a property, can't tell you what expenditures even mean. And then, you have your investor agents who are actually investors and real estate agents. So for me, like, I always recognize that if I'm working with investors, it's the long-term relationship and the equity that I'm building with that relationship that's going to pay off. And you are right. It's a grind, man. Like all of my investors in Philly, like, and not only that, I'm going into the sketchiest neighborhoods ever. Cause if you want a property to cash flow, like, I'm sorry, we have to go to Kensington. So it's like, you're going into these areas where you're like, but you're also juiced and you're like so excited because you're like, this person's going to cash flow $800 a month if they Section 8 this property and do it the right way.
And I think sometimes agents or real estate investors, I want to say we're easier because we make you do more work. But from a problem solving perspective, if you solve our problem, you get us a good deal that's going to cash flow and make sense on paper, we're most likely going to do business with you. If you show a house, and I mean, not to use Kensington as an example, but for a family that wants to move into Kensington for whatever reason, and they don't like the paint color on the wall, or they don't like the way the kitchen looks, you can't solve certain problems when you're dealing with a family once like move in ready. Where an investor, you can say, hey, don't really look at that kitchen. We can remodel the kitchen. Let's put 8K into the kitchen. And now I again solved your problem. I don't want to say it's easier because you do more work, but the problem can be solved much easier when you're working with investors.
No, I agree. And, the huge swing to this is that the fact that if you are working with investors, whether or not they have one door, 10 doors, 25 doors, you're growing together and you're building that relationship where eventually, like, if that investor ends up with 30 plus doors or whatever it is, or a different asset class, like, bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be calling on that person to pick their brain so it's also like a massive network play that is hard for retail real estate agents to sort of wrap their head around because they're not investors, so they're not seeing the value in that relationship and the value of that, nurturing that and having to go through 12 doors and submit 12 offers. And but you're like, man, like, is that if I can get as many people, like-minded people around me and build these relationships, like, it's gonna pay off.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like you're almost potentially growing your future mentors. Like you're going to help them grow, but then they could become kind of like a mentor to you in the future.
Dude, I have a person who I have helped get tenants in for their rental properties who is strictly creative financing. I could call them at the drop of a dime. They're going to pick up and answer any question and help me out on a creative finance deal. I have a Section 8 guy who owns over 75 doors in Camden. Anytime I have to, have a question about Section 8, he's going to pick up the phone. Like, that's the part of it where you're like, the resources that I've developed over the years now is just crazy.
Yeah. One thing that we always try and make a point on this podcast is that real estate's a lot of hard work. Because to me, it looks like there's a lot of like get rich quick gurus on the internet and make it seem really easy. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is like you seem to be obsessed with like time management. You talk about time blocking a lot, AI systems. You always have your note taker in our call. So like as a dad of a I believe you have a baby, like
Yeah.
friend one, you're a teacher, and I believe you said you wake up at like 4 a.m. So like how do you manage all of these things? Because in my mind you just work super hard and that's why you have the things that you have and where you're at today. But people don't see that on the outside. So what is your like, systems look like to manage all of these things?
So, and like, again, like, I'm going to go back to saying that, like, there's seasons of life, right? So, when people are like, oh, the perfect work-life balance, and like, oh, the perfect, like, there is no such thing. And where you're excelling in one area of your life, like, I bet if you're, especially if you're a real estate investor, and especially if you work like a standard 9 to 5 and you have a family, like, some other area is going to suffer. Before I got my real estate license and really my being a real estate agent took off, I had a lot more time in the afternoons. I'm a teacher. I get done at 2:45 every day. And I had my afternoons free. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, like, my fitness was a lot better. But since then that I've juggled now, getting married, having a spouse, having a baby, I basically work anywhere from 55 to 70 hours a week. Like, the one part of my life that it has been drained and I haven't been able to balance has been like the fitness side of life. And it's something where I'm continuously working on to figure out, like, all right, I'm up at 4 a.m. and like I have no time to myself. That's why I get up at 4 a.m. So I get up at 4 a.m. I always take like 30 minutes to journal and to write out, and I write out, like, I've been writing out the same set, like, mantra and goals for probably, man, close to like 2.5, maybe even touching 3 years now. And I have notebooks. I mean, like, the black and white, like, spiral notebooks that we all went to like middle school with. Like, I have a bookshelf full of them. I'm actually looking at it right now, of journals that I've gotten up every single day. I mean, I rarely miss a morning where I get up and write those goals down, because you have to know what you're fighting for. And you have to know, you're going to get to 70 hours in a work week and you're going to be like, this sucks. And then you're going to be like, it's going to be Sunday and you're like, I have to do this all over again and again and again and again. So to be like, to master your time and to even get where I'm at, and I'm not even perfect. Like, I haven't been to the gym in probably over a year, and it, like, I think about it every single day. But to even get to the point where you can manage all of this, you have to really set a time, and you have to set chunks of your time and structure your days so that it's it's consistently actionable. Because people are going to be like, I'm going to cram everything in one day, and like, there's only 24 hours in the day. So like, what can you do? And one of the biggest sort of like aha moments for me was I don't know if you guys are familiar with the authors Dan Sullivan and Ben Hardy. So they wrote The Gap and the Gain, and they've come out with a couple other books. But Dan Sullivan owns Premier Coach, and it's the largest coaching um, company for entrepreneurs. And he literally said, like, to make your life easier and to not go insane, pick three things that you can accomplish each day. And once you accomplish them, everything else is just like gravy. And if you can pick those three things that are going to move the needle each day, you're good. And I've been really honing in on that and focusing on that. And that's like worked wonders for not only like progress and moving the needle forward, but for like keeping my sanity as well.
That's so good. It reminds me at first just the Miracle Morning. I'm not sure if you've read that book by Hal Elrod or not, but like just getting up and like sticking to a routine. He talks about journaling a ton inside of that book as well. Like in having I think there's 5 or 7 savers that you do when you first get up in the morning. It sounds similar to the structured routine you have to start your day.
Yeah, it's something like extremely valuable. Like my mornings are the most valuable time of the day that I have. I protect them with everything that I've got, even to the fact that if I'm going to bed late that previous night, I'm still getting up in the morning because I know I'm going to feel better about myself and I know I've given myself that time, for me before I give myself to everybody else, my students, my clients, my family, so it's just that it's that one part of the, where it's silent, it's still very peaceful. I'm writing, I'm journaling, I'm reflecting, and I'm getting ready for the day.
Yeah.
So
I
so good.
I have a lot to say based from what you said. One, I wanted to say that your goal that you talked about on the Bigger Pockets podcast, you don't have to go into it. People should go listen to you on, sorry, not Bigger Pockets, the Wealth Juice podcast. Maybe Bigger Pockets one day.
Maybe,
It
hopefully.
But
should
your
be.
your goal when you talked about that moment, like that almost made me tear up. Your moment of you and your wife, having the coffee, because like I could put myself in the shoes of, we just bought we bought a place in the Poconos too, and then
Right.
like you're like, are we in that moment? Like, no, not yet. Like that part was, me and Tommy talked about that a lot after, but
It's to have that vision, man, and like, I also like I challenge people, like anybody who's listening to this, and even you guys, like, find that moment. And I set a timer on my phone after I'm done my journaling. So it's like 30 minutes of that. Then it's 3 minutes of just visualization, just 3 minutes. And like, at first it's super awkward and like it feels like forever. But once you start getting into it and really painting a picture of like what that moment's going to look like, every time things go to hell in real estate and every time I felt like I don't know how I'm going to do this again tomorrow, I literally have had that moment flash, thought about that moment and intentionally brought that to the front of my mind. And it just makes things so much easier. So, I would encourage anybody who's listening, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel awkward. Trust me. But after you've done it for a while, you're going to lean on that so much in your real estate investing journey.
yeah. Yeah, and another thing that I kind of just thought about this now, but the amount of work that you put in, almost it also has to be consistent with your goals. And I'm supposed to close on this property on my next house end of July, right? And I've been running a lot. I've been doing really good. I've been consistent, and already I'm like, I plan on doing a lot of renovations myself, like painting, and just like there's always going to just be something to do for like 6 months. That also coincides with my hunting season, and like that's my main hobby and the number one thing that I like to do. And I'm not disagreeing with you with the whole work life balance thing, but I am at a point where I don't need to be a billionaire. And so like let's say real estate made it so that I never hunted and I never went to the gym, and then in 20 years I have all this money, but to me it wouldn't have been worth it if I missed out on those things that I truly love to do for 20 years. But again, my goal is not to be a billionaire. I don't need 1,000 units, like 100 would be cool, but yeah, I mean, I guess it's like you got to decide what's important to you, because in my mind, like the fitness thing is interesting because it's like a lot of entrepreneurs now these days talk about fitness, right? Like they seem to go hand in hand. Like if you're really dedicated to business and like doing the waking up at 4 a.m., then you're also probably really dedicated to the fitness. But I guess to me, it wouldn't be worth the sacrifice of the fitness, to trade that for success in real estate. I don't mean to bash you for saying you haven't gone to the gym in a year, but
No, it's something that like, and to be honest with you, like before we went live, like we were talking, like I'm a health and phys ed teacher, dude. Like fitness has been the forefront of my life, and I've always been like the fit, beefy, like health and phys ed teacher. Like would challenge my students to like racing down the gym floor like every day and like beat them and like be super competitive. So it's something where it's I've struggled a lot with it, and 1000% physical activity will translate into better mental
yeah,
just been like put you in a better mental state. 1000%. I believe that. I know that like I'm living proof. And the fact that, I've let it slide is like I've gotten to the point now where I did catch the real estate. Like, I don't want to say the real estate bug because I am obsessed with it. I'll always be obsessed with it. But like, I dove deep. And when I got my real estate license, like, there was something like there was almost a chip on my shoulder to like prove to myself that I could do all of this. And like, but again, like, there only is 24 hours in a day. And it comes down to like, okay, like, I've been an agent for a little while now. Like, how do I want to reorient my life so that I'm now getting back the social aspect that I miss so much, going to the gym, hanging out with friends, because all of that's taking a toll. And it's
Yeah, and
something.
you've talked about going through different seasons of life, and you're kind of just in a grinding season right now. And so, if fitness has been slightly sacrificed, it's not the end of the world, because once you get to that different season, then you can add that back in, and like
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's all
if
about the
the
seasons and the flows and like, giving yourself grace, but also not letting it get to a point where you're like completely lost in one side and like spiraling out.
Yeah, and that's why you keep that vision. You visualize it for 3 minutes every morning. That's like why you're grinding through and giving up and sacrificing a little bit now. But eventually, let's say 2, 3 years, 4 years from now, like maybe you can take away the W-2 job, get into real estate. You'll have a little bit of extra time potentially to get into the gym, and like your dedication's been huge, because like you're one of the only people I know that's became a new father and not just said like my life has been completely revamped, I can't focus or do anything, like I have this child at home. Like you're actively still grinding completely, and that's a huge accomplishment. A lot of people when they have a child like just completely give up on a lot, and you're still keeping your same passion, drive, and working even harder, which is very impressive.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's a total different perspective when you have a kid, and it's even when you get married, man. Like the fact that like, I don't know about you guys, but like, you know, growing up as a guy, like watching my father, like my mom didn't have, we were a single income house. My father provided, all of the income for our family. So we looked to him to like, and he was a roofer, like he owned his own roofing company. So like if he wasn't putting a new roof on a house, like we weren't eating that month. And like thinking about it now, I'm being like, oh, the pressure he must have had to like be able to like provide for not only him, but his partner and, his three children. Like it's a lot. It's a lot, and it really motivates you. So it's like I appreciate you saying that because when I did like my daughter's only barely 3 months old, and like there is also that moment of like when she was born, I was like, oh wow, like this is real now. Like there is an infant's life who is completely dependent on my wife and I providing the best life for her that we can.
It's
yeah.
so good.
I think I'm gonna be awakened and need to time box the way that you do when I have a baby. Because like again, in terms of like managing, for me right now, it's just my W-2. That's 8, 9, 10 hours a day. But then after that, some real estate stuff, and then I have time to run. But when I do have a kid, I think I'm gonna have to really pick up a schedule like you have to be able to fit in the real estate. So I mean, yeah, it's going to be an exciting time, but definitely busy. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
yeah.
We'll see where it goes.
Busy and less sleep, busy and less sleep. So
Yeah.
you'd be amazed at how well, you can perform with less time and, 2 hours worth of sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that we wanted to ask you about is the social media side, because your Instagram's like one of my favorite ones that I follow. You're doing all these cool videos, and I've only been following you for like 6 months, so I don't know if this is like new, but I'm pretty sure you definitely, you know, turned it up a notch in the last couple months. But
I was cracking up at the video today where you're like, hey, sitting in the backyard, this is a custom backyard, and you got these custom stadium seats, and like, dude, that one got me. I was rolling on that.
Yeah, I actually like wanted to go so much more with that. Like I had a mullet and like I had do you know the American flag shorts that Rocky wore in the Rocky movies and everything? Like I had those and everything.
Yeah.
And like I was like all dressed up, like walking out ready to do that scene, and the sellers were like, "Hey, we're not like really comfortable with that." Like I was like, "Okay, me like all right, it's all good." But yeah, man, like the social media side of things is interesting because it's for me, like if you ask me like how many deals have you gotten from that, like I'm going to be honest with you, like I really haven't gotten that much traction from it in terms of deal flow and deal funnels. But the one thing that I will tell you over and over and over again, and if you're in real estate at all, or if you own a business, a small business, a big business, or whatever, treat that social media as your digital resume. Because I am consistently now at a point where I'm actually like proud to do so as well, where every new person I network with that has anything to do with real estate, whether it's investing or as a new client, me being their real estate agent, I give them my digital business card and I'm like, hey, my social media is on there. I treat that as a resume. If I know you're going to consider working with me, why don't you go on there and sort of see what I'm all about? And I have had so many people, and believe it or not, 2 weeks ago, I had new clients that I said that and they were like, oh, we already went on your social media. We know what you're about. We want to work with you before, like completely unprompted. And I was like, yes, like this is the value of social media. And everybody talks about like deal flow and all that, but your reputation and the resume that you can build on there for the public to see is priceless.
It's almost like Google, right? In the past, people would go to Google and, oh, let me go Google Anthony's, real estate company and like see what he's all about. And you would just look at a Google page and say, hey, do I like this or do I not? But now everybody's on Instagram. I mean, pretty much like our entire population is spending time on Instagram. So if you have a portfolio that you can show of what you're about on Instagram and people are going to look at you, it's replacing the old Google search. And now it's like, hey, let me search them on Instagram. And if you have a resume there, you're setting yourself above because a lot of people aren't doing it, and you kind of need to do it in today's society, especially with like the younger kids of this generation. Like obviously you're working with what's going on now, but as these future kids come up, I believe they're still hopping on Instagram, and like that's how they're meeting, and they're doing a lot of conversations, a lot of talking. It's all online. There's not much face to face. They're not searching Google anymore, so you have to kind of switch with the times. I was talking with a buddy earlier today, and we were talking about how bars and restaurants aren't doing very good. Like I think Secrets a couple of weeks ago for, I don't know, it was Memorial Day weekend or something, like nobody showed up. Like that was absurd. Like the last like 20 years,
Right.
they haven't had that type of show out. So people just, they're not kind of going outward and like socializing as much. So you really have to build that digital resume.
yeah,
No.
and we're in the same exact boat as you. Of like we've done 20 episodes so far. We haven't gotten a single deal from the podcast, but it's networking for us, and like hopefully we'll get a deal one day. But like, just very easy example, we wouldn't be talking to you right now for an hour and a half if we didn't do the podcast. And I kind of look at it as like a long-term play, the same as real estate, where like in 4 years, let's say I'm at a point where I want to start raising money, right, to like for bigger projects. I'm going to be so happy that I have been doing a podcast or Instagram for 4 years versus, okay, in 4 years from now, I want to start raising money and I have to start with nothing. So, I mean, I just look at it like I don't really care what immediate things I get out of it. It's just like you say, build yourself up over time, and just like, people just see it. Even if they don't watch our videos or anything, at least they're aware of what we're doing.
Well, that's
And
the
like
thing.
whether we get, or go ahead.
Sorry, you're gonna stay top of mind for so many people. And here's the other thing that I kind of want, like, while we're talking about this and like, the audience and everybody to understand is that you're so much of the value of my relationships in real estate have come from social media. The only reason I met and talked to Corey and Ryan was because of social media when they first started episode 1 of their podcast. The only reason, like I have, and I'm not going to say too much because it's not done yet, but I have a deal going on in the Poconos right now that if it does happen is going to be like, wow, like game changer, like short-term rental stuff. And that entire relationship was curated from me commenting on that person's post in the Poconos. Like that's how that came to be. So, transaction wise, no, but what do we all know about real estate? It's a game of relationships. It's if you're an investor and your network is your net worth, your relationships are so much more valuable than your actual transactions. And I believe that and will take that to the grave with me wholeheartedly because I've seen it happen so many times in my own life.
1,000%. And like, as much as we want something out of the podcast, or we'd love to get a deal and keep building these relationships, like another thing Ty and I always say that we want to do is just help get people interested in real estate. Like, there are people, like, again, like you talk about Corey and Ryan, they help get a ton of people involved in real estate and thinking about real estate. And we kind of want to do the same thing. I have a buddy, Tyler Dwayne, that ended up reaching out to me because of a podcast and like seeing, hey, like, what do you know about real estate? And now he's kind of bought like a house hack that he's kind of trying to flip in Ohio. And like, that was so cool to like talk to this kid and like teach him about real estate. And like, now he's actually doing something. And Wes Brown reached out from our group as well, and he said he's been listening to our podcast, and like he was asking me a bunch of questions, asking Ty a bunch of questions, and like anything we can do to like pay it forward. Like, again, all of us when we started, for the most part, maybe, I don't know if Bigger Pockets was around when you bought your first house in 2014, Anthony, but for the most part, that's where we got all of our knowledge, was Brandon Turner, Bigger Pockets, David Green, and like whatever they said we'd listen to. And now there's so much more information out there, but a lot of people are getting lost, and a lot of stories are so large. They're talking about, 50 plus units and all these apartment complexes. And so we're just trying to be like mom and pop type investors that are buying single families, some duplexes, and trying to teach people like you don't have to be super crazy. Like, you can get started small and grow from there.
Yeah. It's funny how, like, I don't know about you guys, but like I have imposter syndrome with real estate. That's why I was so hesitant to do a podcast, because you're like, I feel like I don't know anything because I'm comparing myself to people with 100 properties. But then, like, very quickly, you also kind of become a mentor at the same time, and it kind of makes you realize, like, Wes reached out to me also. We spoke on the phone for like an hour, like the week after he joined the call, and he's looking to get like his first rental property, and it kind of makes you realize, like, oh, maybe I do like know a thing or two about real estate. So it can also help build your confidence. But
Yeah, that's something Ty struggled with for a while, and I don't know why. Like, as much, like, he would get in his head about not having a ton of units or a ton of rentals. And I'm like, Ty, you know more than me, whether you have one rental or zero rentals. Like, he's so much smarter the way he, like, remembers the knowledge and the books that he's read and, like, just the research that he's done. I'm like, you know more than I do. Just because I have more rentals doesn't necessarily make me a better or smarter real estate investor by any means. Like, so I'm happy that he's...
Experience is number one in my mind. You can read all the books you want, but you need to actually do it yourself.
But it's also a collective, like, and the reason that I want to touch back, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I want to go back to like the building relationships aspect of it. Like, could you guys imagine if all three of us were sitting in a room about to be partners on a deal, analyzing a deal, like the power and the amount of knowledge, experience, and power that we would hold in that meeting of assessing a property? Like, that's when you get to the point of like relationships where you're like, you almost, it's like it was Henry Ford, right? So like when Henry Ford first came out, with the assembly line and the Model T, like people were bashing him, and Henry Ford actually created the weekend in America. So before Henry Ford and the assembly line, people worked Saturdays. They only did not work Sundays because most people just had to go to church then, and they spent their time with families. So Henry Ford's dilemma was that he had one of the biggest employment manufacturing plants in the country at the time, I think it was. And his problem was the fact that he wanted his employees to start buying his products, but he knew that nobody would have time to ride around in their luxury Model T because they were working 6 days a week. And then Sunday, they didn't need a car because all they had to do was walk to church. Church was in the local town, and then they walked back to their homes and spent time with their families. So he actually created the weekend and started giving people Saturday and Sundays, or Saturdays off, and did the Monday through Friday deal. Fast forward, he had hitmen from there were other companies at the time, Fortune 500 companies, that had hired hitmen to kill him and assassinate him because they were so mad about the work week that he created. Long story short, Henry Ford ends up on a panel of um, like he basically like got under scrutiny, and they were like, what justifies you to like delegate work weeks, and like why are you doing this? Like the American government was involved and everything, and he was getting like he was under a lot of heat, and he was like, he was the one who basically alluded to the fact that like I have a mastermind. And they started asking him like all these different IQ questions, and they were like asking him about like the war of like 1812 and stuff like that, and he was like, I don't have all of those answers, but what I do have is a button that I can press and a room full of people that I've created relationships with, that the second that I need that information, I can go ask one of them and get that. And he was like, it's the power of relationships and the reason that I'm so successful. A guy who became so successful that he changed the American work week because he knew that if he surrounded himself with the right people and had the right relationships, that he could basically do anything.
It's so
Yeah.
powerful.
Yeah, I think we need a Henry Ford second coming where a guy creates the Monday through Thursday work week.
Elon, come on,
Maybe
Elon, let's
Wednesday
get
through
it
Wednesday.
started.
Like Elon's got to develop a product that, he wants us to use that we can maximize from Monday through Thursday,
Yep.
and then we'll have
One
it.
more day for just fully real estate.
Right, right.
But the one thing that I've been following since you started posting about it was this Shamung Castle. So we wanted to say congrats for having that listing. The place looks amazing. Can you just tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, man. So this property is insane. There's really quite there's nothing quite like it in South Jersey right now, in a sense that it's 7,000 square feet. It was completely redone. The owners bought it in 2017, and it was literally falling down. So they renovated it from the studs, built it all the way back up. The property also has a detached two-car garage with a one-bed, one-bath apartment. The property itself is 6 bedrooms, 6.5, 7, which is debatable, bathrooms. And then it has a 2,000 square foot pole barn on the other side of it, saltwater pool. It's on 3.5 acres. It is the definition of luxury real estate in South Jersey right now. And it's one of those unicorn properties that I keep telling people, you just have to you have to walk the grounds of the property to really appreciate it. It's tucked back in the woods. Behind it is protected New Jersey wetlands and forest, so nothing can ever be built behind it ever. And it's just one of those properties where it almost feels like you're out in the Poconos, but you're 45 minutes, 40 minutes away from Philadelphia.
Yeah, well, your marketing was awesome because I think my birthday was May 9th, and that's when like the 2 weeks before you were like May 9th, big things coming. I was like, I don't care about my birthday. I want to see this property that's coming. So I've been watching it, but we'll link your Instagram and they should definitely go check it out because I mean it's a dream home and yeah, I mean it has
It's
pretty much everything.
Yeah, it's really crazy because I just made the big announcement about like the equity play and everything. So the house has really a lot of charming features, but if you're looking at it from an investment standpoint, it also can make a lot of sense. Just in the fact that we got it professionally appraised for $2.1 million, and we ended up listing it for 1.9. So there's essentially, a $200,000 equity play, which if you're, on the investment side of things, when you get a jumbo loan, which is a loan that's anything above $1 million, typically, the minimum threshold of money that you're going to have to put down is 10%. So if you're putting, 10% down on, a 1.9, right, which is going to be 190,000, and you already have 200 worth of equity, like that's a substantial line of credit that you can open up then as soon as you've made closing, and really use that to accelerate, your real estate investing journey as well. And then not only that, I talked to you guys a little bit about it, but with the one bed, one bath apartment, we were looking at like rent comps, and I'm like, oh, like they could pretty much get like 1,500 for that a month. So there's many creative ways that or alleys, ways that you can go down with this property, and it's at a price point where it's going to need a specific person, and a specific type of buyer. But I've been broadcasting it both ways because it's just like it's one of the most like magnificent properties I've ever seen visually, but also like on the creative side of things, when you start really breaking down the numbers and analyzing it, you're like, man, there's a lot of power behind this property.
Reminds me of Brandon Turner. He's got his
Yeah.
house out in Maui, and I think it's like almost a triplex or at least a duplex. It's got like an extra unit somewhere, and he's got that rented out. And he talks about it sometimes on his podcast. It's like, yeah, I probably don't have to rent this out. I could afford not to at this point, but having that extra rental, like, why not? I'm a real estate investor, and get the extra cash flow. Like, it's going to sit there vacant anyway. So hopefully somebody utilizes a lot of the power that's at this property and can make a good deal out of it for themselves and their family. It's got to be awesome to grow a family at a property like that.
Yeah, it's honestly, it is a dream home. It's a castle. Like it's one of a kind. And it also, you know, goes to show that like there's so many people that have said to me like, "Oh, you have two single family homes as a deeded duplex in the city. Like you'll never find that in the suburbs." And I'm like, you just don't know how to look for it. Like it's out there. And like I tell my wife all the time, like we will absolutely be going down that road of like how can we offset, once we get out of the city, like what type of property can we look at that's going to make us happy with our suburban home, but also is going to have assets on the property like another detached home or a carriage house. Or like I've even said to my wife, I have a friend out in Collegeville right now who bought a beautiful single family home on 2 acres, but it has this massive ADU, which is it has like the big 10-foot rolling garages, and it has 3 bays, and he rents out those 3 bays to truckers, to guys that are in trucking that do long distance hauling, and each one of those bays a month for them to house their trucks in there when they're not working, he's getting like over $1,000, and he's cash flow. I think he's like cash flowing right now like $3,300 a month, and that's just all going towards paying down his mortgage.
Yeah.
And that's an easy setup, right? Compared to a rental property or anything
Your
else.
tenants
Like
are
just having,
trucks. Your tenants are trucks. Like that's it.
you
Like
just got Optimus Prime paying your
like
rent
you're
over
right.
there.
Like all you have to do is run electricity to the property. Like you're never gonna have a clogged toilet. You're never gonna have to deal with the tenants calling you at 2 a.m. Like make sure the roof doesn't leak and make sure the electricity stays on, and you're good to go. And you're getting 3,300 a month.
Yeah,
I
that's the
thought you were going to
power.
say the horse farm.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's what I
that
was
one
gonna bring
too.
up.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. That didn't even come to mind. But yeah, that one's even like you want to talk about creative. Like that's just insane.
Ty would love that.
I actually was looking at that because like our best friends are horse people. They know horses. They've worked at horse farms, and our best friend's sister's a professional jockey. So like they really, and I would send my friend like, if it was like 2 acres, I was like, hey, like how much could I get for this? It didn't work out, but yeah, I mean, there's just so many creative ways to make money with a property, like just so many different ways that most people don't really think about. The solar panel thing. Yeah. But to close this out here, again, you don't have to go into the whole like coffee moment thing, but what are your goals in the near and long term future for real estate? Do you think you're gonna kind of try and become a full time investor or
Oh yeah.
full time agent?
Yeah, so the goal is to so I'll kind of give it a breakdown and like go back to like full circle here with like the seasons of life and everything. Once we bought this duplex, which was 2 years ago, there was a big stabilization period that I knew we were going to have to make the next move in our lives. And the reason that I asked my wife for 5 years was because I was like, all right, it's a stable, like in real estate, and I learned this like this was like an eyes wide open moment, but like once I bought my Pocono place, I was like, oh my gosh, my first year, like I'm gonna be cash flowing, and I'm gonna be netting like $30,000 a year, and like no, that's not how it works at all. You're gonna have to stabilize this asset, and any real estate asset that you get, there's gonna be a seasoning period. And most assets, it's probably going to be around 2 years, 18 to 24 months. I always tell my first time investors, like, just be patient. It's 18 to 24 months. You're going to stabilize it out. You're going to get all your systems and processes together. And then it's going to feel like, oh, this cash flow is nice. This is great. This is not taking so much of my mental bandwidth. Like, so for us, like, and where we were at, the real estate agent, like my W-2 pays for, the house that we're in right now, the lifestyle that we live, everything. The real estate agent, that all of that money goes to freeing up debts that we had and that we talked about we wanted to get rid of. So when I talk about debts, I'm talking about like the bad debt side of things, right? Paying off car payments, right? Student loan debt that her and I both had. I took out a line of credit to renovate the Fishtown house I was talking to you guys about. We've been crushing that. And when you look at it from a monthly cash flow perspective, I said to her, hey, do you want to get more rental properties? And, we can cash flow $800 a month. Or do you want to kill all of our debts? And at the time, it was the car payments, it's the student loans, and it was the line of credit. And that was taking up around $1,100 a month of cash flow for us. And I was like, killing our debt, you can look at it the same way. We're going to free up $1,100 a month of cash flow. Like, that's a huge difference in your lifestyle and your monthly living expenses. So we decided collectively together, I was like, I need you to be on board. She's like, I don't want to do more rental properties. It's a crazy time in our life. We're going to get married. We're going to try for a baby. You're working to switch out of, your W-2 and go into being a real estate agent / investor full time. Let's just work on killing the debt. So we've been doing that right now. And we're at a point where we're starting to have the conversation of like the lights at the end of the tunnel. What do we want to do after we free up all this capital? And that's absolutely the point where it's going to sort of be like, all right, unleash the floodgates of investing. And I'm just going to start pounding on getting, more assets and more real estate and seeing, like, taking a really good hard look. And like, honestly, this is the point where I'm probably going to start picking out members in the inner circle and being like, who's serious, who's committed, who wants to partner up, and who wants to take down like a 10 unit within the next 18 months. And like, that's all we are going to focus on, is like getting that done. So that's sort of the trajectory. That's where I'm at right now. The other part of it is that we do have that 5-year plan of like wanting to get out of Philadelphia and just be on the outskirts or the suburbs of the city. All of my real estate, a lot of my real estate is in South Jersey and in Philadelphia. My wife works, at Urban Outfitters headquarters in the Navy Yard in Philadelphia. So we just want to be able to have a comfortable place with a driveway outside of there. So there's that as well. But the fact that, I've shown my wife now, like, the power of real estate, what we can do, is there potential for us to go out right outside the city and find 2 single family homes deeded on one lot again? Yes, absolutely. I stare at those deals every day. But for right now, where we're at in this season of life, it is just kill debt, kill debt, kill debt, kill debt, get the student loans off, get the car payments, get rid of the car payments, so on and so forth. And then once we have that, taken care of, it's right back into investing.
Yeah, that's awesome. You are very good at writing things down and like having a very clear vision. And it's funny, I've been thinking a lot about this too. I'm probably about to go into that mindset as well, where like the last 3 years I've just been like invest, debt, take on as much debt as I can. And when I close on my primary, at that point, like I just got a new car, I'll have a maxed out HELOC, and like you said, it's like, do I want to go try and buy a rental to make me $1,000 a month, or do I just want to pay off $1,000 a month? And I'm definitely going to shift my focus to pay off debt. Again, it's not a forever thing, and maybe I won't look at investment properties as frequently as I do, but yeah, there's a level of stress that comes with large amounts of debt. And then to your point, like you throw a baby, like I want to also have a baby soon ish. I don't know, next 3 years, we'll say 2 to 3 years, and like get some sort of safety net, for that in the future. So I need
Yeah.
to write these things down as good as you do.
I'm with you, Anthony. I love the seasons of life, and I really appreciate the way you go about it in 5-year increments, because I think there's a ton of power in that. There's something that like I struggle with a ton. I compare myself to 60-year-old Tommy Stelzer that's retired and living off of his investments or his real estate properties, right? Like I need to slow down a lot and look at a 5-year goal. And like my wife and I, we just celebrated our 5-year anniversary, and it was funny because we drove down to Florida for our mini moon, we called it. And I remember we were writing down goals and like talking about what our net worth was at that time and where we want to live and how many properties would we want to own. And I mean, we crushed all those goals that we wrote for our 5-year plan. But then since that, I've taken all that confidence and I'm like, oh, like I can get to my 60-year plan immediately. And it's just, it's not possible. So I need to like slow myself down and come up with that like next year 5-year season of life. And I also hoping to have a children and things like that. So we want to also we're kind of on the same path of looking to pay down some debt before we go to buy some extra properties and whatnot. So it's funny that we're all kind of in that season of life right now, but that's what it is.
And there's a ton of power in that, and it's not only coming from the discipline standpoint, it's also allowing yourself, because like, does that mean that I've stopped looking on the MLS and Zillow and running deal analysis? You guys,
No.
I probably analyze at least 12 to 20 deals a day, where I'm actually
Anthony,
like,
you've already tempted us 4 times throughout this call saying, hey, if the 3 of us were together, my blood's already boiled up and ready to go. Let's go take down a 10 unit. So, like, I get what you're saying. You're looking in the background. Like, if something comes up, you have the people that you can tackle a deal with, but you might not be looking to do it by yourself.
exactly. And there is power in numbers by far, and there is power in partnership and all of that. And I am 1000% about collaboration, but it also it's got to be the right season of life for you and where you're at. And even if you get into a good deal and things are going great on the deal side, but your life outside of the deal is chaotic, it's not good, you're not in the right place, it's going to be hell. Real estate is hard work. There is nothing passive about it. I don't care what anybody says or what any online guru says or anything. It's hard work. And you have to be able to have the space and the bandwidth to be able to deal with that and handle those issues and those problems. And I'm going to tell you what, it's a lot easier to handle those issues and problems when you have a lot of your debt gone and your back's not up against a wall at the end of every month because you've paid off all of your debts and you're down to $200 left in your checking account. So, once you build that foundation and kill those debts, it just it allows you to be in such a different headspace to go on and get better investments and to accelerate. That 5 years that you were killing the debt is not lost on your investing side. It's not. And that's where a lot of young investors, including myself, can get overwhelmed and be like, well, I'm not buying. I'm not building up my portfolio. No, but you're killing your debt and you're putting yourself in a position to where you're going to slingshot yourself. And that 5 years is going to mean nothing in 10 years.
Yeah. Well, you just gave me goosebumps again for the second time. So I think that's a great place to end. Just shout out your social media, your Instagram again. We'll put it in the description, but where can people find you at?
Yeah, so if you guys I'm down to have a conversation with anybody at any moment. If you're in the local Philadelphia, suburbs of Philly or South Jersey area, please reach out. Like, I will absolutely come meet you for a cup of coffee or a beer and discuss real estate, life, goals, any of that, anything we've talked about. And I'm most active on Instagram. So my Instagram handle is at casual real estate. It's casual_real estate. I'm on there almost every day, if not several times a day. And like I said, it's my digital resume. So, if you want to have a conversation, if you want to see what I'm all about, please go check out my Instagram and don't hesitate to shoot me a DM. I'd love to talk.
Yeah, his page is awesome.
Definitely recommend giving him a follow. Thank you, Anthony Scornaienchi, for coming out and joining the podcast. We appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, boys. Anytime.
Yep, thanks so much.